Hello, gorgeous. I have such a lovely painting for us to do today. My uncle and aunt are in the Basque country in northern Spain, and my uncle sent this photograph to me, and I thought, oh, that's just perfect for painting. I love Bob Ross and his videos, how relaxing they are and soothing, and so I want this video to be like that, and I want that energy to go onto the canvas. So let's get painting. I'm starting with neon light blue, phthalo blue, and some titanium white. Let's start with those. Before I start, I thought I'd share what it says on this rock. Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid." And I think a lot of times when we create, we get afraid. Is it gonna turn out right or not? Just focus on beauty, truth, and goodness. I like to look at the painting and see the big shapes. I see this big strip of blue, this big triangle, and then some scrubby trees. 1, 2, 3. My daughter is in the background, but I'm going to narrate today because she's very calm right now. So I think I'm able to do real-time painting and narrating. I hope so. That's the line of the clouds. I just like to sketch everything in paint. I very rarely use pencil nowadays. I just like to sketch it all in paint. That's why my paintings always say acrylic on canvas. They never say acrylic and pencil on canvas or anything. Now the way this is positioned is that the peak is right in the middle. In general, you want to not have anything too significant right in the middle of your picture, because it kind of forces the eye to split the canvas in half a little much. So just maybe slightly off center, I think, will do the trick. And then this can sweep down here, and there's some hills going off into the distance. I am not a geologist by any means, but I like to imagine what may have caused these mountains to form. I just like to imagine it over the eons. What caused these mountains to rise up out of the earth like this? So much power, but such a long time. So I'll work on the shape of that more once I get to it. But the important thing is that I'm gonna want to show this dark shadow on this side, and then this sweeps down, and then there's just a little bit. I like that there's a little building down here. I'm gonna include that. How neat to be able to live at the foot of such a mighty mountain as this. So I'm just sketching out where I think the main pieces of the picture will go. I'm using a neon blue. I like neon blue. I just like neon. But I doubt it will show up in most of this in the end. Okay, so the sky is usually darker on the top and then lighter towards the horizon. I'm going to use my phthalo blue. I don't think you can read that, so I'll put the name in the description. Phthalo blue and the titanium white towards the top. All of this is sky up here. I'm a little bit lazy and don't always prime my canvas like I should probably. My time is actually quite limited as an artist because I have 2 young children and one of them is significantly on the autism spectrum. She's my daughter that you can hear playing in the background. So she gives me a little window to paint, usually in the afternoon. But my style reflects my time constraints. That's why I paint in acrylics, because they dry quickly and I can add layers quickly. So your art needs to conform to your lifestyle and your family life so that you can keep doing it. We have adapted so that I am able to create art and my family life continues without missing a beat. So she is creating art at the same time as I am. And that's how I'm able to do this. And so I've been able to do art for this go around now 10 years now, painting. Adapt and endure, that's one of my favorite sayings. I heard that Viggo Mortensen had that up on his wall when he was filming Lord of the Rings. And I just heard that, I'm like, oh, I love that saying so much. And I always say it to myself a lot now. Adapt and endure. Artists have to adapt and endure a lot. And the art reflects that, and it's part of truth. Okay, so I'm going to, you see how I'm starting up here dark and then coming down with more and more white. Not too much because I want the clouds to contrast with the blue sky. Thinking about contrast is very important because you want the viewer to see what your picture is about. So when you put contrast in certain areas, that will show the viewer what you want him or her to see in the painting. So little clouds here. Now I think I'll actually introduce a little purple for the shadows of some of these, but I don't want to get too involved in the clouds. Now I'm going to introduce some violet for the shadows of the clouds. Clouds have layers. These look like they might bring some rain. When I was in Europe many years ago, it rained so much in the summertime. I loved it. I'm here in Southern California and we get some scattered thunderstorms, but nothing like they had there. And I was just so excited. I still love when it rains, and especially when there's thunder and lightning. I'm mixing the phthalo blue and the violet and the white. And this one goes to the peak, this dark shadow. I made the shadow, this one darker on purpose because it's closer to the viewer. And that, when you make things a little darker as they come closer, it helps in the depth perception. When they're farther away, they tend to look lighter. So lightening up these a little bit. I don't worry too much about if it looks exactly like the photo, because my style is not photorealism. And again, part of it is due to my time constraints, and so I've adopted a loose style, but also it's due to me not wanting to be too much of a perfectionist. And then I know that, and I enjoy it when I participate in the beauty of the image that I'm looking at. So I hope that other people can see that beauty also. So I have a hope that my self-care also helps others in some way. Now I'm going to switch the audio over to earphones. It got quite loud in my studio, so that's why I am going to speak to you over here. There are always things going on around me while I'm painting. My kids are always around, and I've taught them to do art while I paint, and it's part of the schedule. But they also like to listen to their own music, and so that's why I'm talking on earphones again. So I'm still putting in the clouds, and you see how nicely the purple behaves as the shadows. It's now very nice. Zoom into this, and then the gray will be here. But I don't want to use black. Mountain. So I'm going to use a little orange and blue mixed with a lot of white. Yes, there's the neon orange. I'm using neon orange and neon blue, mixing that to get the right consistency of those stones. I really wish I knew what kind of stones they were. They look like metamorphic stones, maybe from volcanic origin, but as I said before, I'm not a geologist. There's my daughter. Okay, so I'm painting the stone face of the mountain. A lot of orange came through, and so I'll probably mix that with some more blue, but I'm putting the underpainting of it first and mixing some more blue there, just to get variation in the stone. And then I will use some brilliant blue for the shadows. Blue works really well for the shadows in mountains, and that is because the blue wavelengths travel the farthest of the light, and so a lot of times when we see faraway mountains have blue shadows. Now this mountain, you can see some green in the shadows as well. That shows you that this mountain is actually closer to the viewer. So it's actually not quite a huge mountain. You can see lots of green in the grass and some green in the shadows on the left-hand side. So this mountain, it's pretty big, but it's not as huge as the Sierra Nevada mountains that are outside my window. Those you could just see a lot of blue in the shadows. So how you use your colors can also add depth to your painting. Blues for the faraway objects, and purples as well. And then as you get closer, more greens and reds and yellows. Those are reserved for the closer objects. Now I'm just I noticed while I was painting this that there's actually a lot of gray underneath the grass. It's just poking up. That's the stone that's being exposed by all the weathering. And so the green will go over the top of the gray. Let's clean that brush. It's a nice square brush, and I really enjoyed using the square brush for this mountain painting. The palette knife would have been nice to use, but I couldn't find mine. And it probably was just as well because I like how this one turned out without it. But I really enjoy watching Bob Ross and how he uses his palette knife. I think it works pretty well with the stones. Gives it them a nice solid look. Now I'm putting the far away mountains, and this little piece got a lot of attention from me and details. I noticed that when you're doing this style painting, it works if you choose some areas to have specific and very definite, what is the word? Purposeful details. And you add the details in certain areas. And then a lot of the other areas can be very loose, bold strokes, and big block colors. And that is another way to keep your painting enjoyable and not uptight. We don't need to get uptight. We get uptight over all kinds of things. We don't need to have that happen to our painting. Painting should be enjoyable, and it should feed your soul. If it feeds your soul, it's gonna feed the souls of the people that see it. As long as you stick to beauty and truth and have a good vibe while you're creating. So you see I'm adding the blue shadows and really looking at the shapes. That little triangle shape right there of that shadow is in the painting. And then the dark shadow goes up over the mountain. That's because of the clouds. The clouds are letting light in and casting shadows in other areas. And so it gives the painting a sense like that there's movement in the sky. So you want to make sure you observe where the shadows are and where the light places are. Now once I paint this little section, this little corner, it's going to move quite fast because the shapes on the main mountain are quite bold and big. These are small. I notice I like to put details on the objects that are far back so the eye can enjoy seeing what's back there. Now, you can paint, of course, however you want, because your paintings are your creations and projects. I'm only telling you what I do, and I'm revealing to you my thought process. I see a lot of people online painting, and some of them are just so good. And art, I noticed that the best artists learn from other artists too, not only from their own experience. As I'm getting older, I am much more willing to learn from others. I realize that is the best way. And also learning from nature. We really don't make up things ourselves. We learn from what we see from others, from nature, and from what we experience. So here I'm putting in the shadow. It is, there's the nice square brush I told you about. This is the brilliant blue, and I'll mix in a little green. But the main thing is that this left-hand side has a very distinct dark shadow, because that will give the mountain its 3D look. This shadow is really important, but important doesn't mean tight. What are some of the most beautiful places you've ever been to? Have you tried painting them? What are some of the places you want to visit someday? Spain was one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. I'm from Southern California, and we have a normal blue sky most of the year, and the clouds are very high up, and the blue is a kind of hazy, sometimes brownish blue. But in Spain, it was like a cobalt blue with white billowing clouds that went right down into the horizon. I remember looking out over the many fields, because I got to stay in the countryside, and the clouds went right down all the way into the ground, and there was no space. I don't know why that was. There was no space between the clouds and the furrowed fields of all the farmland. And then above was the very blue sky, like a sapphire sky. It was so clear. It was so beautiful. Now you can see I'm putting in the green. I mixed that brilliant blue with Naples yellow, and it made the perfect light green for the grass on this hill. Now you see how I'm putting more of the green and yellow on this part, not only because the light is shining on it, but also because it's closer to our eyes, and so the yellow wavelength travels to us. And there is my daughter again. She's here with me as I'm recording this audio, so you probably hear her. She's learning to write and draw pictures. Nice project, she says. Both of us do projects every day. So if you have photos from lovely trips that you've been on, those can make the very best references, because you can put in the feeling of the place and the vibes and the energy. As you paint, you can imagine you're there. I find that this imagining is just very, very calming and healing, and painting it is just really lovely because you can sit in your favorite place in your mind. Now you can see I'm layering on that grayish color that I made before. It's a little bit on the orange side, so it's warm. So in the back it's cool, and in the front it's warm. So now I'll be putting in some shadows from the clouds and working in a few more of the details. Now, I do not film all of the detailed parts that I put in here. I will show you this, what I would consider the underpainting, and then once I have the underpainting done, I'll go back off camera and put in the little details and show you the finished result of this mountain. Now you will see me putting in some purple, and I use rose and the same blue to make this purplish shadow. The red wavelength is the slowest and travels the shortest distance. So I save the red, the very purple color, for this closer area. There's a little town at the base of this mountain, and I put the location in the description because I cannot pronounce it. Northern Spain, and I just think it would be so lovely to live right here. And I wonder what the people do to survive here. But Spain is very lovely with the Mediterranean climate, just like we have here in Southern California. There are only a couple places in the world with the Mediterranean climate, and Spain and California are a couple of them. I'm putting in this dark blue mixed with a little white because this blue dries very dark. Acrylics dry darker than they appear when they're wet. So I always mix in a little bit of white if I want the blue color to show up. And this big blue shape will be the backdrop for a tree that is very close to you, the viewer. But off in the distance there, I'll put some buildings that are part of the little village. So this is what I would call the underpainting. Still have to fill in a little bit, but you could see the importance of the shadow. I love Bob Ross's mountains because they have this really strong shadow, and then this divide, and then this light part. And now I know what kind of mountain he gets that from. And here is the painting with all the little trees and leaves and the little buildings. And you can still see all the brush strokes. Here's the finished painting. I think I should get a nice little frame for this one. I think that would be fun.